Boy, do I have a lot of books to talk to you guys about today. So welcome back to Reading with Mo, and we have a lot of catching up to do. I was able to get to 17 books in the month of January. How the heck that even happened, I'm still trying to figure out. I know 2 of them were DNFs, so I mean that explains 2 of them. But anyways, let's just get into the books. I'm gonna start off with talking about them in the order that I read them. So for this year, I'm planning on spending the first 7 to 10 days of the month, each month, working on book series that I'm trying to complete. So the first 3 are all part of book series. So the first one we have is Adulthood Rights by Octavia E. Butler. This is the second book in the Lilith's Brood series. This series is following the near extinction of the human race. In the second book, we're following a different character's perspective than the first one. So in the first one, we're following Lilith herself. I won't spoil it and say whose perspective we're following in this one, but we do see a lot of the similar characters, and while it has fast forwarded a bit in time from the first book, we get a lot of the same repeating characters still in here, just from a different point of view. I enjoyed my time reading this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I will definitely be continuing the last book in the trilogy in the month of February. Then we have one that was a little bit of a slug to get through, not gonna lie. That was Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. This one I ended up, I guess I would give this one about 3 stars, maybe 2.75 rounding up. This one is the 3rd book in the Dune series by Frank Herbert. I just had a hard time sometimes really understanding what the book was trying to say about different parts, and I don't know if it's me or the book or it's just some stuff just went over my head. But in Children of Dune, we are following 2 twin siblings. I don't really want to give away much of what's going on because obviously this is the 3rd book in the 6-book series. But yeah, I will be continuing on with the next one, but I'm really hoping that I like it a bit more, because this one, while it did have parts that I did enjoy, I just really had to push myself to actually complete this book, and it did take me a while to finish. This one took most of the month, I think, to get to, because I put it down and I just took a while to return to it again. Then lastly, we have The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, as part of the series that I read for the month, and this one is the 2nd book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, the 5th book, I believe, in the Realm of the Elderlings series as a whole. This one was a long book. It took me a while to get through. This book was almost 900 pages, and I really enjoyed it though. It was so plot driven, and I really started to like more of the characters. Some of the characters from the first book that I was really super against, and I didn't really enjoy reading from their perspectives as much. I enjoyed more so in this book, and I really enjoyed my time. So I gave this book 4.5 stars. It's so close to 5 stars. The only thing is that when we are reading the perspectives of I think they're called the serpents, those parts bore me to death so much. I always wanted to skip those parts, and I don't know why. It's just, it was never entertaining for me to read them. I just had to push myself, and those parts were only honestly a few pages at a time, so it's not it was the biggest deal in the world. And I know that those parts probably will have more meaning and make more sense and be more important to the storyline at some future point. But other than that, I really enjoyed my time reading this book. I can't wait to see how it ends. I'm gonna be sad to leave some of these characters behind, because unlike the Assassin's Apprentice series, which was the first trilogy in the series where we're just inside Fitz's head the whole time and basically just following that one point of view, we're getting so many different points of views in this one, and so it really makes it more fast-paced. I was getting through these books so much quicker than I did with the Assassin's Apprentice series, which that one did take me a while to get through. And then next we have a book I do not have the physical copy of. I actually listened to the audiobook of Will by Will Smith and Mark Manson. I had this book back when I had Audible, and I hadn't gotten to it yet. I think I had used the credits pre-order, so I was able to listen to this during the month. Okay, so when I first started reading the book, maybe the first 10% or so, I wasn't really sure about it. I think I had set it aside for a second, and then I was like, am I gonna keep continuing on? Do I care or not? And I was like, let me just keep listening and see. And then I ended up really enjoying this book. I gave it 4 stars. It was so interesting to learn more about Will Smith, because while I am familiar with a lot of his his songs that got popular and his popular movies, and obviously Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I didn't really know much about him as a person besides like all the random things that you see in tabloids that you never know like what's true, what's not. So I thought that was very interesting, just to hear about like him growing up. And obviously it's not all of the parts of his life, like he doesn't owe us telling every detail or intimate detail of his life by any means, but I thought it was interesting. I thought it was inspiring as far as someone who knew what they wanted and had an ambition, but also like the flip side of the darker side of ambition, when you can like hurt other people around you because you are so like single-minded and so focused on achieving your goals. But yeah, it's all in all, like, it's definitely a great audiobook, because he's the one who narrates it himself too. It's just like nice to listen to him reading the book and talking about his life, and I really enjoyed my time with that one. Now, as you guys may know, if you have watched my TBR / bookshelf tour for January, I was trying to read as many books as I could off of this pink bookshelf behind me, and I was able to get to actually 5 of them. So let's just talk about those 5 books altogether first before I go on with anything else. So the first one we have is The Gracier by Kim Liggett. This one was a young adult book. I gave this one 3 stars. Actually, ended up listening to this one mostly, and it was a dystopian novel. We're following this community where it's believed that these women, like I think when they turn 16 or like when they come of age, they have to go away because they're going to be dangerous for this year, like because they're becoming into their womanhood. They release this magic, so they have to go into the wild and be separate and before they can be married. And some of them come back and some of them don't. So we're following our main character as she's going into her grace year. I thought the story was definitely very interesting. YA is such a hit and miss age range or target age audience, I guess you would call it, group for me to read from, now that I am definitely closer to 30 than to the teenagers that are often featured in these books. But I feel like if I had read this book when I was more in the intended age range, I would have enjoyed it a bit more. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it. I give it 3 stars, but it's not one that I hugely connected with, but it was entertaining for a story to listen to. Then we have Blow Your House Down by Gina Frangello. This one I actually received from Counterpoint Press, I believe as a like advanced review copy back in, I don't even know, it doesn't say what date, but I know it was like sometime last year, and I'm just now getting into it, and I'm really glad that I picked this up. This was one I was considering just unhauling. I didn't know if it was like fiction or nonfiction. Originally I thought this was a fiction book, but it's actually nonfiction. So, and it's read, I did listen to the audiobook with this as I was reading it, and it's read by the author, who I feel like does a pretty good job of narrating it. And we're following her. So basically the whole premise of Blow Your House Down is that she is in a marriage with her husband, and straight from the jump she tells you like that she was the one who was living a double life and being unfaithful to her husband. And then we go back and forth in between her childhood growing up and kind of what was going on in their marriage, what led her to take the path that she did. And while I feel like that's not necessarily a subject I am super interested in reading about, I, as much as you can say, enjoyed reading the book. It was very interesting to read from her perspective and see what it's like from the point of view of a person who has done that sort of wrong to someone else and who essentially blew up her own family. I feel like she approached the topic and her experiences not in a point of like trying to get pity or to justify her actions. Like, she knows what she did was wrong, and she's just processing all of it and letting us see her thought process through everything now that she has the hindsight to look back on the things that went wrong with her marriage. So all in all, I think this was very interesting. It's not necessarily something that I would typically pick up or go to reading, and I had with this book considered DNFing it too. I think at about like a few pages in, just because I wasn't really sure what the premise of the book was and what was going on, because it first starts off with this like almost like a glossary thing, a dictionary, and I was like confused as to what was happening, but I just kept going to see what was going to happen, and I ended up getting interested enough that I wanted to see what she was going to tell about her life story. Now we have one of the pink books that I did not finish, and that was The Idiot by Elif Batuman. I believe I got a pretty big chunk through this book. Like, I got at least like 100 ish pages into this book before deciding that I wasn't going to continue on and finish it. So I ended up giving this book about 2 stars because I didn't feel like continuing on. It was, so we're following this young woman. She's kind of like finding herself. She's starting college, and this takes place in the 90s. She's actually she's the daughter of Turkish immigrants, and this is her first year at Harvard. She's taking all these classes and subjects that she's never even heard about, and it's just a lot of stream of consciousness, a lot of like random stuff that just didn't really seem like it was relevant or made any sense or was important at all. Just for me, I just couldn't connect with the story. I didn't care about any of the characters enough to push on to the end, and I felt like if I had completed the book, I didn't see myself giving it more than about 3 stars. Yeah, overall, I was just kind of a little bit disappointed in this book. I wish that it had done something more to keep my attention, but I just found myself getting really bored and not really caring and having to make myself sit down and read, and like even just getting to those 100 whatever pages seemed like it took me a long time to get to. So I decided I wasn't going to force myself to continue something I just wasn't really loving or enjoying. So yeah, this was a DNF, 2 stars for me. Next, we have Age of Iron by J.M. Coetzee. This one I gave 2 stars to because I just didn't really have a lot of luck with the books that I was picking up from this shelf, but now at least I'm glad I know now they won't be sitting on my shelf taking up space. But this one was not that long of a book. It was pretty short, so I was able to finish it within like 2 sittings. It takes place in Cape Town, South Africa, and we're following Mrs. Curran. She's this older woman. She's dying, and she lives in this big old house by herself. She's writing this. The book is her letter to her daughter, kind of like in her last days and stuff that's going on, especially with apartheid going on in South Africa. But I feel like the thing was, I feel like the story was so, even though it's supposed to be about her having quietly opposed apartheid, she's suddenly confronted by its true horrors. And so there's this like homeless man that appears on her doorstep, and it's just kind of weird, and I feel like it was more so just her kind of complaining a lot most of the time. Like she wasn't that interesting of a character to be reading about her perspective of. Like if you're looking for a book about set during apartheid or about apartheid in South Africa, I just don't feel like this was at all one that I would recommend. Lastly, for the pink books, we have one that thankfully it was a bit better, and that was The Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham. I have been wanting to read a John Wyndham book for forever. So this book I believe came out in like the 50s, and I really enjoyed this book. So we're following this quiet little town where nothing really happens, except one day everybody falls asleep, and when they wake up everything seems normal. They just lost a day of their lives, but then a few months later they start realizing basically almost every single female in the town is pregnant. And so it's all about this. I think there's like a movie that was based off of it. I haven't watched it yet. I think it's like an older movie too. But then they have these kids. They're all blonde and golden eyed, and they grow up way too fast. They're definitely odd and different in the village. I really enjoyed this book, and I will definitely be picking up more books by John Wyndham. I believe I gave this book about 4 stars. I know I said that I was going to talk about the books in the order I read them, but I'm like super all jumbled out of order now, so that's fine. Let's just go into the last book that I have the physical copy of, and then we'll go into the ones that I've checked out from my library on either ebook or audiobooks. So we have The Maid by Anita Prose. I received this book from Book of the Month, and I was able to actually get the audiobook from my library, which is why I actually got to this book quickly instead of letting it sit on my shelves for a long time, which is what I normally do when I first get books. And this book I ended up loving way more than I thought I was going to. So this book kind of like had piqued my interest when I was looking up books that were going to be coming out this year, but it didn't quite make my most anticipated. And then I just kind of wrote it off as just like a mystery thriller I probably wasn't going to get to. But then when it came in the Book of the Month box, I decided, hey, I'll just like give it a chance and see maybe if I like it or not. I was in the mood for something a little bit more on the mystery side. We're following a woman. Her name is Molly, and she lives with her grandma. She's a little bit, she just has a hard time reading people and understanding social cues and stuff like that. And so that does put her a little bit of a disadvantage, and she's living on her own now that her grandma's died. She works at this hotel as a maid, and when she goes to go clean a room one day, she ends up finding one of the guests' dead body, and of course somehow it's going to be somehow tied to her. And so I felt like this was like a cute, like lighthearted, like it never really felt like super high stakes book, if you like that kind of almost like a cozy mystery. Like I've never really read a legit cozy mystery, but compared to all the other like mystery thriller type books I've read, I would put this more in the cozy mystery genre than anything else. I know this book has been her as the main character, she's been compared a lot to Eleanor from Eleanor Oliphant is Always Fine. And I enjoyed that book as well. I definitely liked her character too. I know there has been some issues with the way she's depicted as being like neurodivergent and not kind of being more of like a caricature of that and not exactly being super accurate. So I would definitely look into maybe some other reviews of this book if that's something that you are concerned about before going into this book. But overall, I found that it was definitely an entertaining book. It kept my attention. I was interested in seeing how it was going to end up, what was going to happen, and I enjoyed my time with this book. I'm glad that I ended up picking it up and not letting it sit on my shelves for forever. Now onto the books. Now these are all pretty much new releases, books that came out in the month of January that I was able to get on the hold list really quickly when they came out at my library, so I was able to get them fast. And the first one was Brown Girls by Daphne Palazzi Andreadis. This one I gave 3 stars. This one I was already iffy about to begin with because it's told from a collective voice. It's not really one person, but it's the collective experience of this group of friends and women who live in Queens, New York, going from young girls through adolescence into adulthood, and their experience of being families of minorities and immigrants. I think it was definitely different. It was interesting, and I like that this author was doing something that I hadn't really, at least personally, I hadn't really read anything like this before, and it's their debut novel. But for me, it kind of just wasn't as interesting. Like, I don't regret reading it, but it's not something that I feel like I'm ever going to pick up again or think about much. Next, we have The School for Good Mothers. I gave this one 4 stars, and this is by Jessamine Chan. This book was good, but not quite 5-star level for me. I just felt like some of it wasn't like the most believable, but overall as a storyline, I felt like it was interesting an idea to explore, but I feel like it could have been pushed maybe a little bit further. But with this one, it's also actually a debut for this author, and we're following Frida, who, because she has left her baby daughter at home for 2 hours by herself, ends up losing custody of her child and goes on to have to go to this school for good mothers to try and be able to be back in her life again. And this is basically what that is. It's like this government reform program for parents who, not just mothers, but fathers too, parents who have done something that's like endangered their child. It definitely has a big emphasis on Big Brother, just with how it was discovered that she even left her child alone, and then with them like analyzing her afterwards, like putting cameras in the house and trying to figure out observing everything of her life. I think that for me was what was hard to believe, because hard to believe in a government that would actually go that far to try to ensure the safety of every child, knowing how our government is now and seeing how much time and money and resources they would put into government programs to help children. I think that sadly is the part that kind of made it seem unbelievable to me, because I know that our country would never do something like that. Next, we have Vinyl Moon by Mahogany L. Brown. This one I gave 3 stars. This was a very, very short book. I would probably classify this more as a novella. And we're following a teenage girl who has just moved to with her family in Brooklyn because of an incident that's happened in her past with her boyfriend. We don't really know exactly what happens. We just happened, but we know that she has a broken arm. And now she's been sent to go live with this other family after the aftermath of this thing that she's experienced, and it's her finding herself, connecting with people there, using her discovering reading and stories and other Black writers, because she likes to write as well, just like to connect with. I think it was a good story. I probably would have enjoyed it if it was even just a little bit longer, because we are with the characters for such a short period of time. The story, it's told in prose and in poems and different vignettes and stuff, so it's not exactly just like a linear novel form for the novella, and I enjoyed it. I feel like this is something that definitely I would recommend to those who are in the young adult age range. It was enjoyable even to read as an adult, so I feel like someone in that age range would really enjoy it as well. Next, we have My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Mashfeg. This is a book I've been wanting to get to for forever. I just randomly was like browsing on my library, and I seen they had the ebook available, so I read this one as an ebook, and I gave it 3 stars. When it first started out, I was for sure this was going to be a 5-star read for me. I could see, okay, one of the things that happened in the end, I'm not going to say, but I could kind of see that coming based off of what year it was and what was going on. But anyways, I don't know. I just don't know what more I would have wanted from this book. I thought it was interesting. I feel like it's definitely our main character, who I can't even remember her name now, or if they even mentioned her name actually, but she's deciding that she's going to medicate herself in a way that she is going to be sleeping for a year. She's gonna have her year of rest and relaxation, and then she's gonna come out of this like a new person, ready to take on the world, all these things. But she is definitely a privileged person, so she's able to live this kind of life that would be very unrealistic for someone who doesn't have so much money as she does, to just go away from life for a year. And so she's hardly pretty much awake, is going through her some of the stuff in their past and then her dreams. And a lot of people love this book, and I was hoping to be one of them, but for me it just didn't really impact me in the way that I was hoping it would. It's definitely kind of an odd book. I've never really read anything like this before, so I'm glad that I did get to it. I am glad I didn't buy it physically though, because it's not really something that I feel like I would keep on my shelves and reread again. Then we have my other DNF for the month, and this one was from my anticipated books of the year, and it was My Annihilation by Fuminori Nakamura, which I'm really sad about because this was a book in translation. It was translated by Sam Bett, which I've been wanting to read more books in translation, but unfortunately this one just didn't do it for me. I think it was pretty short. I got the ebook from my library, and I want to say it was like 100 pages, maybe a little longer, and I think I got like maybe like a third of the way into it, and I just was confused about what was going on. I don't know, like it starts off with like this guy who's taking someone else's identity, and then he gets taken in a car because they think he's that person, and he like found a body in a suitcase while he was there. But then I don't know, it's just so, I can't even honestly explain because there's a lot of stuff like going back and forth, and I didn't know if it was different people or what was going on. So yeah, that's why I DNF'd this book. That's why I can't even fully tell you what it's about, because I don't even know. But it was described as what transforms a person into a killer. Turn the page, you may forfeit your entire life. So I thought it was like, because it was, I remember when I was reading the description of what it was about, it made it seem like it was implicating us as the readers as being the one who's being accused of this murder or whatever has happened. But I don't know, it just definitely didn't do anything for me. Then we have another book which was super short, a novella, and it was Star Child, a biographical constellation of Octavia Estelle Butler by Ibby Zaboy. I was definitely really looking forward to this release. I gave it 4 stars. I'd never actually read any sort of biography about Octavia Butler. This was nice, but it's definitely not like, if you already are pretty familiar with her works, her stories, and her like background, you're not really getting anything new from here, except the fact that Ibby Zaboy is putting it into kind of more like a poetic form. So there's like different poems, a few different photos. There are some like prose writing as well. Like I can't speak. Ibby Zaboy is a great writer. I've loved reading other books by them before. I just feel like this book is more, I feel like, targeted towards a young adult audience. So I would definitely recommend this book for young adult readers of Octavia Butler, or someone like me who it was their first time reading any sort of nonfiction about Octavia Butler, so I didn't really know anything about her past. So for me, none of this was like stuff I had already known before. But it was, like I said, it's very short. I think I read this in like, I know you could read this probably in like an hour or two, like that's how short it was. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, I love Ibby Zaboy and I love Octavia Butler, so put the two together, I'm gonna like what comes out. And then lastly, the book I want to talk to you guys about is Yinka, Where Is Your Husband by Lizzie Damilola Blackburn. This one I gave 4 stars. This was a contemporary rom-com, I guess you would put it in the category of, we're following Yinka, who is this, she's like in her 30s. She has her Oxford degree. She is a British Nigerian woman. She has a good job, good friends, but everywhere she goes, because her sister's pregnant, her cousins are married and stuff, all the family is always like, Yinka, where's your husband at? Definitely for their culture and for her family, that is a big thing, and it's something that she also wants for herself as well. She was with someone for a few years and he ended up breaking it off, and now her friends feel like she hasn't gotten over him, but she has to, because it's been years now, and if she's wanting to get married, she needs to put herself out there. So she's going to be in her friend's wedding, and her plan is that she's going to try and find a date for her to go to the wedding with, so that people will stop being on her. And she also just wants to find that person that she wants to be with. But I will say I enjoyed the book. I like the different characters and stuff, but specifically with Yinka, I feel like all of the plot and all of the issues basically come down to one thing, and that is that she is a liar. She lies all the time. She creates all these issues in her life because she's lying. She lies about big things too, and she's lying to her family, she lies to her friends, she lies to the people that she's interested in dating. And I feel like if she was already known that she would lied a lot before the book, then that's like part of her character and something she needs to fix and work on. But it seems like right when the book opens, when we're meeting her, is when all of this lying starts happening, and it's kind of like lying for the sake of, without the lies there kind of is no plot point. So for me, I still enjoyed the book, but I know that that's something people had issues with, and I could definitely see it too, and I had caught that myself thinking that towards the end of the book too. I'm like, okay, she keeps lying a lot. But I will say, like, at some point she does get it's looked into like therapy and stuff like that, so obviously like people are seeing that this is an issue. But I don't know, I just felt like it was out of her character for who she was to just all of a sudden start lying about everything to everybody. But I mean, I've never really been in that situation, so I can't say what is like normal and what's not, of how someone would behave when put in those kinds of situations. So those are all 17 books that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I hope that you had a good time watching this video, and maybe you will pick up something that you found interesting. I did get to a lot of new releases, which I'm planning on trying to do every month, and then I think sometime in April I plan on doing a video all about all the new releases that I've read so far and which ones were worth it, which ones weren't. So we'll look out for that at that time too. Thanks for listening to me blab on about all these books today, and that's it for this one. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!